The Global Food Forum is being held in Brisbane this year. There has been a particular focus as well on food waste. We still waste about 30% of the world's food. Joining me live from the Food Forum is Agriculture Minister Murray Watt. Thanks for your time. This really stuck out at me, and I know there's two levels. There's what we do at the household, and I guess that's just up to all of us to try to be better. I eat the kids' leftover meals, if that helps. But companies, what's the government doing to make sure food can be used in other ways, whether it be, bananas that have to look perfect for some reason, or produce that's a day old, like bread, but, still pretty good?
Yeah, good morning, Tom. Good to be with you from Queensland, which is going to win the State of Origin tonight, of course. What we're doing is really being led by Tanya, Plibersek and Ed Husic. Their portfolios are doing a lot of work when it comes to what's known as the circular economy to reduce food waste. But also my portfolio of agriculture is supporting a lot of that work. And I've seen some really terrific examples of this right across Australia. I was on a farm at Werribee just outside Melbourne not that long ago, and one of Australia's largest horticulture producers has actually been investing in using some of the product that is not taken by supermarkets because of blemishes or other things, and actually turning that into powders, chips and other kind of food as well. So what that means is that the farmer is making more money rather than just taking things to landfill, and of course it's much better for the environment as well. So I think we're seeing some really exciting things happen right across Australia in this space, and as a government we're looking forward to working with industry on it.
Maybe the standards can change as well, that the so-called perfect bit of looking fruit, if it's not, the right shape, apparently gets thrown out. Anyway, I'll stop banging on about it. You've got a big warning today on nuclear power. You're saying, look, this takes a lot of water. This could affect our farmers. Now, these are going to be placed on coal-fired power sites. They use quite a lot of water too. Wouldn't it just be simply a case of them plugging in when the coal stops and therefore there's no net change?
No, it's not quite as simple as that, Tom, and it's one of the things I've spoken about here today. And I think Peter Dutton and David Littleproud really have more questions about their nuclear policy when it comes to the water usage. In fact, what we've seen is that there are independent studies that have demonstrated that nuclear power uses substantially more water than coal-fired power, let alone renewable energy. So there's a real question about where that water is going to come from, whether some of that water is going to need to be taken off farmers, and what farmers are going to have to pay for their water if there's a competing use for that water. Obviously, a number of the coal-fired power stations that are looking at closure in the next handful of years would be giving up their water rights, whereas Peter Dutton and Littleproud are talking about having nuclear power in place for 80 years. We're in a drying climate in much of Australia, so I think there are some really serious concerns about where this water supply is going to come from to power these nuclear reactors and to cool their radioactive cores, and what that's going to mean for farmers who rely on that water.
Right, so coal still uses a fair bit. You're saying nuclear can use more. I suppose we'll see as the plan, whether modern tech might use a bit less. The other thing, though, is seawater. That can be used. It's used around the world. A lot of these will be pretty close to the coast, so wouldn't that be a simple enough solution?
Well, certainly the nuclear power plants that Peter Dutton is proposing for Queensland are nowhere near the coast. One of them is at the Tarong Power Station, which is near Kingaroy in the South Burnett, right next to the Great Artesian Basin. The other nuclear power plant Peter Dutton's talking about for Queensland is near Biloela, well off the coast. What we have seen is other countries have placed them on their coast to make use of seawater, but that's not what the coalition is talking about here. So, as I say, I think there's some real questions for Peter Dutton and David Littleproud about where that water is going to come from, water that is currently relied on by farmers, and what that's going to mean for farmers and food production across the country.
In terms of the impact on agriculture as well, large-scale renewables are far from a free pass. There's the land they'll use, and we're seeing increased concerns from farmers, and also the transmission lines. So will Labor's plan detail exactly how much agricultural land will be lost as a result of large-scale renewables?
Yeah, even the New South Wales government has done work on this, which determines that the amount of arable land in Australia that it would be needed for our reliable renewables rollout is actually very small. I acknowledge that there is concern in many rural communities about the rollout of renewables, and that's why I've been working with Chris Bowen to make sure that we can really improve the consultation processes around these developments compared to the consultation processes that existed under the coalition. Obviously, landholders and local communities have got a right to be consulted and engaged when it comes to these developments, and that's exactly what we're going about improving. But we need to remember that just as there are farmers out there who oppose renewables, there are many who are making a substantial amount of money out of it. There are farmers who are getting paid $50,000 per wind turbine on their property, some with multiple wind turbines, and that's providing a much more diverse income stream for farmers to cushion them against drought and other times when their farm income might not be quite as high.
Well, one of the others is, though, properties nearby that still have the impact, if you like, the sight of it and so on, but none of the benefit, are not too happy. And the other element that builds in here are those really big transmission wires. Now, EMO says we'll need 10,000 kilometres of them to be able to update to get all these renewable projects on board. That's just for our use, but 28,000 if we're going to have be a net exporter of energy. That 28,000 figure, that would have a much bigger impact on farmers. Are you less inclined to go down the path of being that exporter and just focus on our own backyard to make sure farmers are not adversely affected?
No, I mean, I think Australia stands to gain a lot by becoming a net exporter of renewable power to our region. A lot of money, but also a lot of income also for rural communities that get some of the benefits of this. As I say, I acknowledge that there are people across the country who aren't happy about wind farms or transmission lines, and they need to have a proper way to be engaged when these developments are happening, and that's what we're doing. But as I say, there are many rural communities and many farmers who are making serious money out of these developments right now, and they fully support them going ahead.
Okay. So 28,000 will be more the figure because you say the government's keen to be an exporter. When you say as well communities being consulted, Labor's said, you know, what about the consultation for nuclear power plants? What if communities don't like the plan, even once they're consulted for these large-scale renewable projects? What happens then? Is there any sort of veto? Can they reject it, or will you just say this is the best place for it, too bad?
Well, obviously, any proponent for a renewable development, like any sort of development, has to comply with laws and consultation processes that are set down by government. And what we're about doing is making sure that communities do have more of a say in where these developments go, what the benefits for their communities are, what the conditions might be. So what will happen in terms of veto rights will depend on what we lay down in terms of those consultation processes. But Chris Bowen is working on that right now.
Right. So what does that mean? More of a say, and the veto will depend that it might go to a community vote. You'll look at the next election and say there's a big swing. They didn't like that one. What does that mean? You're still weighing up if they have a veto right or not?
Yeah, well, these are exactly the sort of things that Chris Bowen is working on at the moment. What we've said is that we will implement all of the recommendations from the review that Andrew Dyer undertook, the former Energy Infrastructure Commissioner. He's made some excellent recommendations to make sure that communities do get more of a say over how and where these sorts of developments go ahead. But as I say, Tom, we can't lose sight of the fact that there are many farmers and many rural communities that are supportive of these developments because of the income that they're bringing into communities and into their farms. Right. It's not all one way.
But you're weighing up that veto right.
I know that the media tends to focus on people opponents. I'll leave it for Chris to go into more detail about that. But what we're about is actually improving the consultation processes for communities.
Murray Watt, there at the Global Food Forum. We'll let you get away and get some more ideas for the portfolio. Appreciate your time today. Thank you.